should be in the parade right now, but I'm working on it.
Just go straight to questions if you got them for Coach Thomas. Maybe just introduce yourself since Coach's first time seeing any of you guys. So just introduce yourself as you ask questions. But go ahead.
Sean Callahan, HuskerOnline. When was this opportunity on the table with you and Coach Rhule? And when you first came to Nebraska a year ago, did you have some initial discussions about an opportunity to come to Nebraska?
Yeah, well, obviously we've talked. He's been a mentor for mine for 10 years or so. So we've always had those conversations. It was towards the end of the season, as far as my season with the Steelers, that this kind of came up, and it didn't really happen. Tangibly until our season finished up. So I couldn't tell you necessarily time frame, but it happened more to the end of our season, and didn't really come out there because I didn't want that to be a distraction for what we had going at our place. We felt like we were in a good place. We were pushing forward, and then when it came time to be here, that's when it worked out.
Hey Glenn, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Can you take us through a little bit of the process? And Matt mentioned that he had you go through some film of guys who were on the roster at the quarterback spot, maybe some guys who they were looking to add, just what that was like for you, and what your initial observations were about the talent in the program at that position.
Yeah, it probably was just that. It probably wasn't any more than that as far as just general evaluations, personnel, not necessarily scheme so much, just trying to get an idea of what was here, what could be here, and then what we were looking for moving forward. So it probably wasn't any deeper than that, just some general observations and evaluations.
Glenn, Steve Sipple from the HuskerOnline. In 2015, you had a similar setup with Satterfield at Temple. You guys made a pretty big jump. Is that something you draw upon now, or is it so far in the past and forgotten?
No, I think you definitely draw upon it. I think that's part of why this transition was so appealing for both sides, to be quite honest. Sat and I have been together have known each other for 20-plus years, and we've got a great relationship, and I have the utmost respect for him. He's a great football guy. He's got great insight, and it really worked well in 2015, and I respect him for that transition that happened at that time, and I see it very similar this morning, or today. We even started some of those conversations as far as schematics and some of the foundational stuff this morning, and we just kind of hit the ground running. It was very smooth. We talked kind of the same language, so I think that expedites that process as far as us getting ahead, from a schematic standpoint, faster.
Those Temple teams played really good defense too. Does that make this job appealing? Matt Rhule says he's always going to have a good defense. How does that affect you?
I think it comes down for us playing complementary football. At the end of the day, like if we need to play good offense, then we need to play good offense. That's just what it was. And we were fortunate enough at Temple to have a good defense. And then that being said, I felt like we did some good stuff on offense to put ourselves in a situation where we were 4 minute, offense per se, maybe a 2-minute defense on the other end, and a lot of those situations early in the game. So I think the complementary piece is the most important.
Sam McEwen from the Omaha World Herald. Coach Rhule said that you coach quarterbacks from the ground up. What does he mean by that?
Well, I think something unique that's, from my background, if you will. I've been in Division II ball, and I've been in, NFL probably half my career. So I've kind of seen both ends of the highest level of quarterback coach, and then, coaching an 18-year-old freshman. So I think you got to find that line of where are they at and try to meet them at that line, and then raise the ceiling from there. So I think that has benefited me through my career, and that's what we're going to try to start to do, as we start this process moving forward, and that kind of starts this week, really, to be quite honest.
Where are the 3 quarterbacks that you're coaching right now at?
As far as
Name it, whatever.
I couldn't give you an answer to that, to be quite honest. I think we're still in that process. Hopefully we learn that sooner than later, but I couldn't give you an answer there.
Amy Just with the Lincoln Journal-Star. Since you've been here, it's been a pretty short time, but what have you been able to do since you got your feet on the ground here?
Just kind of seeing the culture has been the big thing for me, and you see that pretty quick. Our season finished in Buffalo on Monday night, and I was here Friday, and then had a junior day that Saturday, so I was kind of head spinning a little bit, and then Monday morning I got to see those guys working out at 6:30 in the morning, and you could already see that excitement, that energy, that urgency to get better. You could see that pretty evident pretty quick. So that was probably the biggest thing that I've taken and really am excited to see, because that usually doesn't happen so fast, and I think we're in a great place that way.
You alluded to it a little bit, but what does this week look like for you?
Well, this is kind of the first week, signing day was Wednesday, so, Coach let us get out of here for a couple of days, kind of get our feet back on the ground, and this is kind of the start of us pushing forward from, from meetings, from schematic, creating that foundation, figuring out where our guys are at and where we need to build upon. So, we're literally starting page one in the playbook, and what did we do last year, what worked, what guys we have coming back, what are they good at, and then how can we advance, moving forward.
Coach Brian Christopherson with Husker 24/7. When you're looking at QB prospects, what traits do you hold in high regard? What are you looking for at the top?
Yeah, that's a loaded question for sure, because I don't think there's just one thing. I think you have to be aware of what their strength is. If they're a passer, are they elite accuracy? If they're an athlete, do they have enough passing ability to get you through a passing situation? You know what I mean? So I think you have to identify what they're really good at, and then is that trait good enough to carry them through? Now, the good ones, like last night, for example, that they do a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? They're athletic enough to make plays off schedule, but they have enough arm talent to, to get you, pass completed on, 3rd and 8.
Hey, Coach Steve Marek with Rivals. How is the process, what does it look like with you joining the room with Marcus Satterfield and helping design the offense and design specific plays? Like, how big of a role will you have?
Well, I think everybody will have a significant role. That's one thing I appreciate about Coach Rhule is he lets everybody in the building have a role. It doesn't matter where good information come from. Let's bring it to the table. And I think that's one thing I do appreciate about Coach Sat is there's no ego involved. I mean, for me, for him, for Coach Rhule, it doesn't matter where that idea comes from. Who brings it to the table. Let's put the best ideas up front, and then let's sort it out from there and put the best play, best game plan we can together.
Coach Rhule has said that he has an appreciation for the San Francisco 49ers offense. You yourself, maybe when you look at that, what do you like about that?
I think they do a good job. We played them, I think, the first year of the season. We played them last year, and I have a history with Kyle a little bit in the NFL, and I've always appreciated how he plays complementary football. So, he'll have 3 or 4 plays off of a similar formation, shift, motion, so that creates that complexity for the defense. You're always talking about illusion of complexity. You might be running base concepts, if you will, but just with a multitude of formation shifts, motions that complement each other.
Coach, you were out in Arizona for a while. How familiar were you with Dylan Raiola? And did you get a chance to watch him as a young quarterback, obviously before even Nebraska was on the radar?
I did. He came up, spent a day with us one day, and then they had a 7-on-7 tournament on campus, so we got to hang out. We were refereeing the games, during 7-on-7. So I had some background with him and very impressed. Obviously, he's a mature guy. He's got a lot of traffic, a lot of noise around him, but he's down to earth, wants to work, and, wants to be the best.
What do you mean by that? Traffic and noise?
All you guys want to talk about him. That's what it is.
And what was it like coaching 3 different starters for the Steelers last year? You didn't have a guy that just kind of started all 17 games. You kind of had to change your styles at times. What was that like, and how can you translate that to here?
Yeah, that's been good, bad, or indifferent. That's been consistent in my career. I don't know if that's just football in general. I mean, you think back to even our Baylor years, right? Like in 2017, we had 3 starters. I knew Solomon, Zach Smith, and then Charlie Brewer came in and ended up getting freshman of the year. When I was at UNLV, we ended up playing 3 guys, and Cameron Friel, ended up getting freshman of the year. So, that's probably the one thing that I've been most proud of in my career as far as anybody that's on the field, the expectation and standards to play. So I think that's how we'll approach it. It doesn't matter if you're the first on the depth chart or 5th. I mean, if you're in there, the expectation is to play at a high level.
Have you had chances yet to sit down? I mean, you mentioned this week is the first week you're actually getting in and doing work in the office. Have you had a chance yet, or is it on the docket this week to sit down with those quarterbacks, get to know them personally? What have your interactions so far been?
It's been minimal up to this point. We've been on the road, here or there, but I've tried to at least try to bring them in just to introduce, try to learn a little bit about them. But yeah, today, kind of moving forward, that's when we'll get a little bit more strategic, a little bit more structured as far as those meetings.
Does the transfer portal, you hear this from some coaches, does the transfer portal impact the way you coach? Does it affect the way you coach up guys?
No, I don't think so. At the end of the day, you got to, whether it be a Saturday to a Saturday, you got to make them the best they can possibly be when the ball snaps. So you can't look long term. You just got to build the best quarterback you can, if you will, that given weekend.
Hey, Coach, Luke Mullen from Lincoln Journal-Star. Since you have coached both pro, collegiate quarterbacks, is there anything you enjoy about working with a young quarterback who's to learn the position maybe a little bit?
Yeah, it's a lot of times when you're talking about an NFL quarterback, it's more of there's a dialogue, right? Well, if this and if that and maybe this, maybe that, there's a lot of gray that's involved. I think when you start talking about particularly a young quarterback, it's more finite, you know what I mean? It's more this, and this. And I think there's and then when you see that success come to the field and the lights, the eyes open up, it's a cool feeling, you know what I mean? And to see that meeting room translate to the field and then all of a sudden you hit an explosive, that's pretty cool, that's pretty cool. So hopefully we can, create a couple of those moments.
Why is it more finite with younger quarterbacks?
Well, you just don't want to create as much gray, right? You start creating gray and all this, the complexity, in today's defenses, shoot, even our guys, right? Tony does a great job on that side. There's so much complexity in the defense. You start creating gray, you create uncertainty as far as what the quarterback's thinking. They're not going to play fast or play confident. So the more that you can create black and white, finite decisions, the more confident they're going to play and the better they'll play.
Is there anything even more unique about the early enrollees? As far you talk about young quarterbacks, these are two kids who should be in high school, could be in high school, seniors in high school. What does that present for you when you work with Dylan and Danny in that regard? I
think it's a huge benefit. Both those guys I mentioned that played as true freshmen, both were early enrollees. So, at all positions, obviously the quarterback's, unique because of so much is asked for him. But I think all positions in general, there's so much ground that you can make up in that 6 months, if you will. That the other signing class guys will show up in June and, these 16 guys are in just a whole different place of what they've gone through. So I think it's a huge advantage for sure.
I know you're just getting to know guys, but did you get a chance to watch some of what Heinrich did last year? And is there a difference in coaching a guy who's maybe a little bit more midstream in his college experience than the new guys?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some, right? I mean, they're all at kind of different levels. So I think you got to try to meet in the middle, and you probably slow it down just a little bit just to kind of get the other guys, to that level, if you will. But at the end of the day, we'll try to get the other guys as fast as we can, but we got to push him to get better, at where he's at and progress from there for sure.
How closely are you watching them during this winter conditioning?
I think you watch them more, just the social dynamic, if you will, the leadership component. Are they in the front of the line? Are they being vocal? Are they giving that extra effort? The leadership by example type mentality. You know what I mean? Because that's what you're trying to promote, that because they're talking about leading the team. Well, obviously your performance has got to be a part of that. So I think it's probably more that, as we just kind of watch, and I'm trying to figure out faces and so forth. That's kind of been a cool thing, and I've been impressed with it, to be quite honest. All three of them are, in the front of the lines. They're being all vocal, not shy about it. They're out in front doing their thing.
I'm sure it'll ultimately be a decision that's made by Coach Rhule and Coach Satt and you. But what's your feeling in the spring on how much you throw them into the fire as far as taking contact? You put green jerseys on them. Obviously, there's just 3 of them on scholarship. So how do you, as a position coach, want to approach that?
I couldn't probably speak on the contact piece of it. That's a Coach Rhule decision. But I think the most important is to give them as many reps as they possibly can. I mean, that's what at the end of the day what it is. You know what I mean? Because when the game's happening fast, particularly for a young quarterback, we got to slow it down and get those guys as many reps as we can. Keep it fluid. Try to keep that as equal as we can with all first team, second team, third team, all that, right? To give them equal opportunity to show what they can. So that's one thing we'll definitely be intentional and deliberate about.
Coach, you need to KTV in Omaha. Just curious, when you were thinking about taking this thing, is there 1 or 2 things that maybe jumped out and said, hey, this excites me, I want to work with this person, that person, and not just the quarterback, but maybe the offense as a whole?
There were so many things, to be quite honest, and probably just as big as anything is this place. I mean, this university, this program, what's happening here, it's such an exciting time, and to be quite honest, I didn't really know all that's here. You start talking about this new facility over here, and we're giving tours around to the recruits and so forth. This place is unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like I was at the basketball game last night, and they're storming the court. And I mean, they're doing the songs and the whole deal. Shoot, I was rocking. Let's go. You know what I mean? Saturday night in Michigan, they beat Michigan. I was outside walking in the concourse. I kind of showed up a couple minutes late, and that thing was rocking in there. I was like, "What? This place is. Let's go." You know what I mean? So just that in itself was probably the most intriguing. I say most. That was one of the intriguing things. And then obviously, my past relationship with Coach Rhule and what he's done as far as creating programs. The combination of the two, the type of recruits you can get in here, a pretty cool partnership.
Hey Glenn, Zach Carpenter with Inside Nebraska. I know, like you said, you haven't really got a chance to talk to them more in depth, more introductions, but when looking at Dylan, specifically his ability to process information, do it quickly, you talked about the game slowing down for some guys, especially the young guys. I mean, what have you noticed with that specifically, just his processing of information?
I think it on tape shows to be pretty good, right? I mean, and Danny too. I think both those guys. I think that's one of their strengths is they show composure and poise in the pocket. A lot of times as a young quarterback, you kind of see those restless feet back there, and then we always talk about restless feet means what? Restless mind, right? So you see poise and composure, calm feet with both those guys. So I think that is a nice foundation to move upon, right? So they're not getting all excited and restless back there. They can at least kind of see what's happening, kind of process.
What's sort of the plan to test them early on in spring ball? Like, I know you said a lot of reps.
I think that's the best way. I mean, how do you get to be a better football player? You play football, right? Like Coach Rhule always talks about it. How do you run fast? You run fast. So I think that's part of the theory of philosophy is getting many reps as we can and let those guys show us what they can do.
Glenn, Evan Glenn, Omaha World Girl. Curious, how would you characterize the culture of the team that you're walking into, and maybe the motivation from the guys who were here last year who had a lot of close games that didn't quite happen?
Well, I think that just adds to the excitement of where the arrow's headed here, right? It's definitely trending up. Everybody's excited about all the close opportunities and how we can, be better in those opportunities moving forward. And they're working to that. I think that's exciting to see and pretty evident to see, to be quite honest. In all those workouts, they're pushing each other to get better to push through some of that stuff.
We asked some of the other assistants this last year when they were new to the job. I mean, you've worked with Matt Rhule in a couple of different places. How have you seen him change over the course of a decade? How is he maybe different now than he was 10 years ago?
I hadn't seen him a bunch yet. You know what I mean? I hadn't seen him a bunch because he's been on the road here and there, and likewise. So, but I think just confidence in his process. Like his process has worked at a multitude of places, and I think there's a lot of value in that. You know what I mean? But he'd be the first to tell you, like every day we come to the building, we're looking for the best way. Just because we did it, say this time that year, wasn't necessarily the way we're going to do it this year. But I think overall, the umbrella philosophy works. It shows it works. I think he has confidence in that and understands that he's putting hopefully good people around him to preach that message and try to get that philosophy through to the team.
Did you cross paths with Sat? Did you say it had been 20 years that the two of you have known each other before Temple? Where
just via friends, coaching, the coaching tree, if you will, and then he came up when I was with the Falcons. He came up, hung out with us, and just the coaching tree.
Coach, have you been able to put together what caused a lot of the turnover problems we had with the quarterbacks last year? How do you fix that?
Yeah, I hadn't got too much into that specifically. You know what I mean? That'll be obviously a topic of discussion, moving forward. But I couldn't probably speak to that in detail.
How did you go from Midwestern State to the Atlanta Falcons? How did that happen? Like, what was the moment?
The moment was I was driving recruiting down in Houston, and I got a call from Mike Smith and was like, "Hey, do you want to come up to Atlanta?" And I turned the car around and I was headed to Atlanta type deal. You know what I mean? But no, I was very fortunate when I was even a GA in Division II. I was going up to Baltimore with the Ravens and doing some internships and stuff like that, and got to know some of those guys and worked hard, and it felt like I would work hard for him at that opportunity. So he reached out and it worked out good.
What did that experience with the Falcons how did it change your life?
Well, it definitely changed my life. I was very fortunate when I was a GA. I went from being a GA to a Division II coordinator, and at the time, I was 25. I thought I kind of had some answers, whatever, and then you get put in that level of the elite, the highest level of football, and you're just like, oh shoot, what did I not know? You know what I mean? And so I got to be around some of the best coaches in the world, and how they did it and why they did it, and that social dynamic with the players. The organizational piece of it, right? Mike Smith is kind of under the Brian Billick and the Bill Walsh, that tree, if you will. The organizational piece was unlike no other. So to get to see that at the highest level really, like you said, changed my life.
Anybody notice you? Know who you were over at the basketball arena this weekend?
No, not this weekend. I was kind of incognito. I had the hat down, whatever. But that junior day, it was kind of cool though. We walked in with all the juniors and some guys were, hey, welcome, coach, good to have you. So that was pretty cool.
I'm sure as a quarterback's coach, you're well aware walking in here how much scrutiny there is on that position, and how well-known and recognizable those guys are even before they play it down in this program. How do you approach that challenge with them, just from like a mental off-the-field standpoint, and getting them to understand how to deal with that?
It's like that everywhere. I mean, that's just the position, right? Pressure is a privilege. That's just what it is at playing that position. So I don't necessarily think you address it. We just, try to be the best we can possibly be. Try to put them in a position to be as successful as we possibly can, and all that other stuff is just part of being at that position.
Thanks, Coach.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.